welcome to the High Ground Podcast. Today we are talking Revenge of the Sith, which is a pretty important movie in Star Wars. It's a good one. I recommend it if you haven't seen it. Anyways, it's gonna be awesome. I've brought on several new people, and we're all have all the best Anakin stands. Except Miss Eggy. Shout out to Miss Eggy. And yeah, we're just gonna have a lot of fun right here on the high ground. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the high ground. I'm super excited because this is just a great movie, and I was really excited to especially bring Luke on and Skid Space. I've been meaning to have you on for a long time, and it just hasn't happened yet. So, same thing with you, Nick. But I will have everyone go around and introduce themselves. So yeah, we can go around, and I probably should have brought my notes. Had to restart my machine as well. But we'll go around and ask, who are you? Where can we find your amazing content? And who do you hate in Star Wars? Who do you just have an irrational hatred of? Like, it doesn't have to be an obvious, because I know everyone hates Ponkrell, but is there a character that it's just, I don't know what it is. They need to, someone needs to take him out. I'll hire Boba Fett, a young Boba Fett. Older one's gone soft on it. No, I'm kidding. Um, I'll start with you, Skid Space. And also,
Okay,
what do you want
hi.
me to call you as well?
Sid, Skid, either one of those really works. I'm not picky, but hi, I'm Sid or Skid, Space. I go by Skid Space pretty much everywhere on the internet, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, but we don't talk about that place.
We don't
Did you
talk
want?
about Tumblr. No, no,
No,
no.
no.
Thank you
That will
for
be in
that.
my head for the rest of the night.
Did you want me to answer the hatred question
Yes.
like off the bat? Okay, cool. I have to go with Maul. I do not know what it is about him. Like, he's an amazing character. He's an amazing villain. He's part of like a really they did something really interesting with bringing him back and his arc. But every time that he would show up again, it was like I had the strongest desire to just punch him in the face. Because it was Clone Wars, and then he came back for Rebels, and I remember screaming, "No, not again!" at my screen. There's just something about Darth Maul that triggers my fight on sight response.
I like how it's not even a fight or flight. It's fight on sight. It's just sheer violence.
It's that strong of an urge.
Yeah.
All right. I love it. How about you, Luke?
Hi, my name is Luke. I am one half of the Pod Ones podcast. You can find us on TikTok at the Pod Ones podcast, Twitter at Pod Ones podcast, and on Instagram at the Pod Ones pod. We are currently going through the entire series of the Clone Wars. That's what we do every Thursday. And the person that I hate the most in Star Wars, it's hard because I really don't have anybody that I like genuinely dislike, which is an interesting one. But I would either have to say, well, the easy one would definitely be Ponkrell because Ponkrell because he's the worst. But honestly from the sequels, I'd probably say Hux. Not a fan of Hux. Just not a fan of Brindle.
I like him, but he's very punchable. You know what I mean? Like
he's like the sequel version of Tarkin, but Tarkin was so much better. Like he's a lesser Tarkin. You know what I mean?
yeah.
He wants to be Tarkin, but he's just not.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
my knuckles would feel really good on your face. I just need it.
Yeah, pretty much.
How about you, Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick on TikTok, codename Fulcrum, and then on Instagram is Nick _ codename _ Fulcrum. But most Star Wars stuff is all TikTok. Everything else is my dance stuff. the person that I had to think about this because at first, like, there was different rounds, right? Like throughout your life of like people you kind of dislike. You know, like at first when Empire came out, because I was actually alive for that, then I was like, I was kind of like disliking Lando, and then Return of the Jedi comes out, and then love him. But I would say the person that I have a hatred for would be Masamita. Like, I just look at him, and like I just like it doesn't really say much of anything, but I just hate him so much. I look at his face, and I'm like, I hate you. You just stand there. You stand there with a stick. That's all you do, and you occasionally lean over and whisper. But I just, very punchable. Very punchable.
And last but certainly not least, how about you, Xanthi?
Am I supposed to introduce myself first? I'm Xanthi from
Yes.
Star Wars Music Minute. And irrational hatred, I really can't say hatred, but you know, the ones that that have always annoyed me are Maul when he comes back. Love. I just Maul coming back, who just never really did it for me. Neither did Savage Opress, even less so.
It's the name, really.
I was not into that thing. I was not into that at all, and I hate to say it, but I was not into the Night Sisters stuff either. But other than that, I would say the Mayor Mak Shaiz's person, not him himself, but his what's he called? Do you know what I mean?
The Major Domo.
The Major
Yeah.
Domo.
Oh, the Major Domo. That's right.
Major Domo is definitely one of them. I just can't. I can't deal with the Major Domo.
See, I loved him.
Really,
But it was like I loved him so much because it would be fun to punch him in the face. There's like such a dynamic between like hatred punch and I love you punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the Major Domo.
So thinking about it, I think another one underrated is Admiral Piet, and I love it when Vader just chokes him out, like ends his life. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just say because he's a moron. He's like the biggest moron out there, and I'm just like, screw you, Piet. Like you deserve that.
I'm seeing some in chat. First of all, I don't actually understand I don't really know what it feels like for someone to be punchable, or I don't really I don't understand that feeling. So maybe a character just still hasn't come for me yet. But I see Arinda Price in the chat, and I see Gascon in the chat. And first of all, Gascon confuses me because the shape of his like body and like the size of him and his voice box, and I just don't understand how he has enough of a resonance chamber to produce the sound that comes out of his voice. Like I just am perplexed looking at him. Like, I mean, I'm a sound and music person, so I look at him and I'm just like, the suspension of disbelief. Like, I just have to suspend so much disbelief knowing that little thing can produce that voice. It really confuses me. However, the droid arc in the Clone Wars is my favorite arc. It's like some of my favorite stuff ever. I love that droid arc. I think it's so like
You and George.
me and George. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to an experimental art school, so that checks out.
Nice. Yes. Weaver Gascon. Love it.
Awesome. I got lots of awesome people commenting in the chat as well. We have
Mara Jade's another one. Sorry.
Oh, interesting. We got more talk for Masamita. I just had it up and like my brain just turned off.
Keanu Moody. Element.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me that because I hate that man with a passion. The only good thing he does is the Geonosis arc. That's the only useful thing. And I will live on that hill. Or die on that hill. Either way.
For me, I have Acrylic Copperworks. For a while was Wrecker in the Clone Wars before the Bad Batch. Bad Batch changed your mind. So.
Yeah, the whole Bad Batch in the Clone Wars was also like, whatever to me. At first, like until this show.
Yeah. And then for me, my big one, and the reason I brought this up is because Boba Fett reminded me of it. I just freaking hate Bib Fortuna. Just as a child, he terrified me. Like his face. I was a little kid watching Return of the Jedi, and it was just like, I hate that guy. Like I don't want him. And I very vividly remember going into like Toys R Us, and all of the good toys were taken, and it was all action figures of Bib Fortuna, and I'm just like, he won't leave me alone.
It's so traumatic.
Man, and to this day, whenever Chaco hears "Me wanna Wonga," he just like turns around. Is he here?
Me
Is
do
he
not
behind me?
want a Wonga. Me very much do not want a Wonga. So we're all here to talk about Revenge of the Sith. This was a big event. Do you guys remember your first time seeing it? Was it a big event for you? Is there any major memories associated with it? Even it's not like opening weekend, but just your good feels that are associated with this film. I'm gonna go to Nick first.
Well, because when the prequels came out, I was in college, and then by the time this came out, Revenge of the Sith, I was after. So like the Phantom Menace hit at that point, at that age where like I wasn't quite the right age for it. But by the time Revenge of the Sith came out, like that was like kind of the maturity of that and the darkness of that. It hit so much harder, and like by the time like Battle of Heroes and the final battles are hitting, like you're just like the depth of that and the weight of the galaxy. So I just remember that just kind of being in awe of that whole fight scene, like things that you always wanted, like Yoda against the Emperor, and I just the heaviness of it all, and knowing where it's going too, and seeing all this like devolve, and knowing that you're not just going to get some happy ending. That's definitely really what hit hard that first time around.
Awesome, I love it. How about you? How about you, Xanthi? Also, really quick, Xanthi, I have to apologize to you. I was like, are you? I work in the financial industry. It's tax season. My brain is just fried constantly. And so I looked at my messages, and I had the entire message written out to you, and I never sent it. And
It's
so
all right.
I was like, oh, I thought they would respond faster, and it's all me. I'm really sorry. Anyways,
It's all good. My brain tried to. You were like, "Did you get my message?" And I was like, "No." And then I followed up. I was like, "I should probably have followed up more than just saying no."
but it is.
Don't
You're
worry.
here, we're here, and it's awesome. What was it like when you saw this movie? I mean, I know you have a cat named Anakin.
Yep, I have a cat named Anakin.
Nice.
For my brother, my brother and I saw it together, and I don't remember if my dad dropped us off or if he just sat in the back of the theater and or something. But we went to our local theater at midnight, and it was the first time that we had gone to. It was our first time being allowed to go at midnight, and my brother and I had we had this, the hype leading up to it was just, we were not okay. Like we both to this day like cite Revenge of the Sith as the single most impactful, like momentous, powerful, like epic, like emotional movie-going experience of our lives. And of course, it would be hard to beat that also because we were at a sweet spot for age, but like also it was like the most tremendous movie-going experience for both of us. We were like both a wreck. So it was a very good experience. Very powerful.
That's awesome. I love it. And what you said?
So I was 7 when Revenge of the Sith came out. And that period in like my early childhood, it's so blurry regarding Star Wars because I literally don't have a point in my life that I remember first seeing a Star Wars movie. That's how long the movies have been a part of my life. So Revenge of the Sith exists in this very nebulous time frame for me where my understanding of that time period of Star Wars actually comes more from the Clone Wars TV show. So that the TV show actually contextualizes Revenge of the Sith more for me personally than the actual movie does in some weird ways. So, I don't know. It's just for many, many years of my life, all Star Wars was just Star Wars, and that was enough for me. So Revenge of the Sith is just another Star Wars movie, and I love Star Wars, so of course I'm gonna love it no matter what anybody else really says.
Awesome. And Luke, I made you go last for a reason because I got the vibes of like I'm gonna get hit with a freight train here.
So I was 10 when this movie came out. I remember watching. So, I know probably most of us remember this, but do you guys remember the behind the scenes that they would do? Like on StarWars.com, they would show like bits and pieces, like the live camera or whatever.
Live camera.
I don't remember.
I would come home. I would come home from school every day and watch that. And then when the first trailer dropped, like I was mind blown. I was like, but now, like looking back on it now, I'm like, God, I was oblivious. They showed us the entire film. The entire film.
Can I ask what was the live cam showing?
So it basically was like them filming the movie, but
Like,
it was
showed them on set.
Yeah, it was on set. Like they had it live streamed. They did it for all 3 movies, and they had it streaming on StarWars.com. Yeah, it was pretty.
It was a different time.
Oh, it was a different time. It was before people cared about spoilers, you know.
Movie novelizations used to come out before the movie. You know.
Oh yeah, that's so true because I'm pretty sure that the Revenge of the Sith novelization came out, and so did the video game. The video game came out a week before, and Battlefront 2 came out 2 years before, or around the same time. So we got a little bit of what was going to happen in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So like it was just nuts. So I remember going to that. I actually, it's a funny story. So my next door neighbors were like, "Hey, we're gonna go see the new Star Wars movie. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And the mom was like, "Okay, you got to make sure that it's okay with your mother first." And like, I didn't ask my mom, and I was like, "Yeah, she said it was okay. Let's go do this." I lost my damn mind. Just lost my damn mind. Yes, it's depressing now looking back on it now. It is probably the most depressing Star Wars movie to ever come out. Like I Empire comes close, but like the events that happen in Revenge of the Sith are hard hitting. But like when I came home, I ended up getting grounded for a day, and then my mom ended up wanting to go to it as well. So we just went to it like the next day. I wasn't grounded, but like that. I mean, and that's stuck with me. So whenever I would go to my grandparents' house, I would make my little cousin do the choreography with me for the Battle of the Heroes. And to this day, like we still talk about that. Like we joke around and stuff like that. So like this movie is a big deal. It's always been a big deal. But yeah.
Can you still do the choreography? That's my question.
I can. So funny thing, and I noticed something rewatching it now that is so like important to the story. It was just a small detail. I'd never thought of this before, but during that battle, Obi-Wan is never really on the offensive. Mm-hmm. Even to the moment where he's the last warning of the high ground. That's the moment he decides to, okay, I'm done. I'm ending this. But like literally the entire time, he is never the aggressor. He's always on the defense. And I was like, damn, Obi-Wan. Emotional damage, my guy. Emotional damage. But yeah, that was my first experience with it.
I don't know. I wonder what it would be like to be your parent of like, yeah, he snuck out and didn't ask. What did he go do? Saw Revenge of the Sith, and you're like,
well, at that time, it was the first Star Wars to be a PG-13, so you have a parent go with you. So and that's why my neighbor wanted, and I'm sure they laugh about it now. But sorry, Mom. You should have seen this coming, but
I don't know. I always just wonder that type of stuff about being a parent when you're like, I respect
God.
this move. It was a power play. Like, I gotta pretend like one time when I was I got in a fight at school when I was little, but I didn't start it. The kid like sucker punched me, and I beat the hell out of that kid. And I felt so guilty about it that I threw up in my next class. And so and so I went to they told me to go to the bathroom, and instead of going to the bathroom I went to the office and I told the principal what I had done. So like I told on myself because I just felt so, and then they sent me home, and then I told my dad, and then my dad gave me $20.
Nice. Nice. That is the power play right there, Chaco. That's the power play.
All right,
But
so go
real
ahead.
quick, Chaco. Just want to shout out Far Far Away Factory. Brooke, she does amazing work. Go get this
Yes.
this Battle of the Heroes sweatshirt, and she's got them in t-shirts, and she's got some other Revenge of the Sith merch that she's going to be dropping soon, so you won't want to miss out on it, especially for Anakin stands. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. Yeah, always shouting out Far Far Away Factory. Brooke is an incredible artist, and like all of her stuff is just top notch. Also, so we want this to be conversational, now that we're getting into the film. So feel free to jump out and say whatever. I just separated this into acts. I'm calling first act is, this is where the fun begins, to the you're sounding like a separatist. So yeah, the whole opening scene, which is like my favorite opening scene in all the Star Wars. It just right into looks serene, and then it's just chaos and battle. I love it.
That's one of like the first notes I had down, was because, okay, so full disclosure, there was a point I hit in my late teens that I became the prequel suck person, and as I've gotten older, I'm like, well, they don't really suck. They're just Star Wars movies. That like, but this is the first time I've watched Revenge of the Sith in a while. So I was actually really shocked with how much I enjoyed myself watching it this time around. So that is one of the first notes I have, is that the shot of just the lone Jedi Star Cruiser and then immediately shifting down to see the chaos of like tons and tons of cruisers, tons and tons of ships, all the chaos around it. That was such an incredible use of like camera movement and suspension right off the bat. So
oh yeah, honestly, it's one of my favorite space battles, because like for a kid that had ADHD, so like sitting in the theater, like I was just like blown away. I was like, oh my God, there's so much going on. I don't know what to focus on, because literally like the movement, because you think like you see the you see the Venator fly over, and it's very like much like A New Hope kind of. And then you hear the drums play, which ironically, and Xanthi probably knows this, it's the first ever time we hear drums used in like an opening sequence. Because George really wanted the doom doom. He always wanted something like that in Star Wars. And that's what they used. And I thought that was like mind blowing that they had never done that before.
That's very like 2001 Space Odyssey kind of like setup of expectation of like the grandioseness of the scene with like the drums and everything. That's really interesting, actually.
Which George Lucas cites as being the greatest sci-fi movie of all time.
Yes.
I don't agree. It's weird to me, but that's okay. Go ahead, Nick.
2001? Oh yeah, I have trouble getting through that. Like, yeah, okay, it might have been for its time, but like over time, no. It's so slow. But I do think, yeah, Revenge of the Sith is probably the best opening of all the Star Wars movies. Like, so many of the others just kind of copy A New Hope, but this one actually takes it a step further. And getting this on Star Tours, anytime you're on Star Tours and you get this moment in it and going through that battle scene, it's kind of the best thing ever. But the really getting the first time to see Anakin and Obi-Wan have that playfulness back and forth, like
Yes.
really seeing that being matured and getting that, it really just kind of sets the tone for the entire movie. But I love seeing their back and forth, and I love getting that, and that it got expanded on in Clone Wars. But yeah, it's the sereneness going into the battle. At first, like all the new droids that you're seeing coming up in that, like you're like, what is this? What are these little bubbles and now they're popping up? Vulture droids. What's going on? Is really interesting because every new Star Wars introduces something new. But there's so much to process in that first 5 minutes that like once you see it over and over again, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Xanthe?
Are we talking just about the opening?
No. So we're talking opening all the way through. We're talking about the first act. We're talking first act. We won't
Okay.
focus on the opening, but we'll keep talking a little bit more.
I'm so bad at the linear progression of stories. Like I couldn't even tell you where the first act ends.
Yeah, so I'm calling it right before the Darth Plagueis the Wise speech. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, I think Revenge of the Sith it does so much. Okay, in terms of showing the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, I think Attack of the Clones already shows like a significant I don't know, maturation of their relationship, obviously. And something that I don't know if other people will agree with me, but what I get from them in Revenge of the Sith, which is still quite a bit. I mean, obviously now I feel like they're brothers in this one. I feel like the Clone Wars cartoon doesn't really add much for me in terms of their relationship. Like I feel like what I got from Revenge of the Sith, what I get from Revenge of the Sith already covers the same things that I have that are just shown more in the Clone Wars. I don't know if that makes sense. Like sometimes the extra materials like novelizations or cartoons or whatever will fill in gaps, like perceptual gaps for me. And other times it just feels like it's fun, but it isn't filling a gap. It's like the source material already did it for me. It just feels like it's just belaboring the point, not in a bad way at all, but yeah, and I always find it strange. I guess I'm not like I guess I'm a little bit off topic, but I find it strange when people talk about the Clone Wars, which is just a show I like very much. Talk about the Clone Wars as filling in like gaps that they needed to have filled in before Revenge of the Sith. Like for me, I didn't need the Clone Wars to make me on board with Revenge of the Sith already. But for some people, I guess they do. Or like it helps them like the prequels better. For me, it doesn't. I already like them, so it's just cool. Yay, more.
That's an interesting point, because a lot of, I guess I'm in the opposite camp then, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think the problem I have with like the prequels in general is that when it doesn't really make sense to me when Obi-Wan in A New Hope is like, we were close, but we only got Revenge of the Sith to see like that interaction, because a lot of Attack of the Clones is them bickering back and forth and Anakin trying to prove himself and Obi-Wan saying stay in line and stuff like that. So I feel like we see that relationship in Attack of the Clones, but like I feel like they build on that quote that Obi-Wan says in A New Hope in the Clone Wars. You get to see more of that brotherly relationship build and progress, I guess.
Absolutely. But don't you see it in Revenge of the Sith too?
Yeah, but it's like you if you only watch the movies, you see that progression. You're just like, okay, so they went from being at each other's throats to like being brothers. You know, I guess it just makes more context. I guess I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah, for
something
me,
that
Just say for me, they told us in Revenge of the Sith, and then we did get to see it, um, but feeling it and living through it does help. But it's hard to say because at this point in time, I'm unable to rewatch without the added context already in my brain. But I feel like for a lot of people, there was so much like vitriol and hate surrounding the prequels in general that I think a lot of people look back and like subconsciously this makes it okay for them to like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I hated it back then,
Mhm.
but now it's good, and you're like, no, you always liked it. Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't really like I never really hated the prequels for like when they first came. I was 7. I didn't know what hating a movie was like. I never really like hated the prequels or Revenge of the Sith. But like I said, the context in which the prequels existed in my mind for so long was the Clone Wars, because it was like actively happening on. I was the exact target audience for that show when it first came out. Because Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005. Clone Wars premiered in 2008. So it was just like years and years and years of being with these versions of these characters that it was very much like almost like tonal whiplash, seeing the years and seasons and like countless examples of Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship in the Clone Wars to seeing it just kind of mentioned and thrown in here and there. For me personally with Revenge of the Sith, it almost felt like this is getting like way far ahead in my notes, and like this is like more closing thought thing, but for like even still to this day kind of, Clone Wars Anakin and movie Anakin, specifically Revenge of the Sith Anakin, feel like two completely different characters. Like
I kind of agree.
Yeah, like live action Obi-Wan and Clone Wars Obi-Wan, they still feel like different versions of the same character. But Clone Wars Anakin and live action Anakin, they could have completely different names, and I wouldn't know that they were supposed to be like the same character who led to Darth Vader and all that. But that's just because I have complicated feelings about Anakin Skywalker in general.
Well, yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah.
Here's the thing, like I think Clone Wars Anakin, like I don't like Clone Wars Anakin nearly as much. Like I don't like Anakin in the Clone Wars or Padme. I think that like what the Clone Wars cartoon shows us in their relationship like makes me like it even less. Like I like how it is in the movies, and I feel like the Clone Wars is something that's harder for me to like. I fill in the gaps because that's what I do, but like the extra context like does nothing for me. It almost feels like watching something different. I agree. There's more. It feels like there's more continuity with Obi-Wan, but like I feel like for me, I don't. This kind of reminds me of our high ground. Sorry, not our dyad discussion about the High Republic, Chaco, where like my whole thing is I actually don't like when things are spelled out. Like when there's a lot of detail and like a whole other extra. Like I'll watch it for fun, but like I like to just read the subtext, and I don't like when that becomes like such a big thing where it's like doesn't feel special to me anymore when it's made into a concrete thing. But on the plus side is that people who don't read the same subtext as me, that then they actually make it a concrete thing, then it kind of gets people to, I don't know, more on the same page. Like I already felt because in the Revenge of the Sith, like we see this development of their friendship, and I believe it. Like I didn't need any help believing it. Like I didn't need to see the steps they took to get there. I just made the leap of like, okay, a few years have passed. This is where they're at now. Wow, how cool that things happen.
I completely agree with you that it is very cool to see the scenes that portray Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship in the movie like that. My biggest issue with those scenes, though, is that it feels like they're sandwiched between scenes that kind of do the opposite of that. And I know that might be the point to show like this inner struggle that Anakin is dealing with, but it's very like it really takes me out of the feel like understanding their relationship with how they chose to portray that inner struggle within Anakin. And what you said about subtext was really interesting too, because there are a lot of scenes and like there's a lot of dialogue in Revenge of the Sith that I feel like is pretty much on the nose. Like they're just showing us, scratch that out. They're telling us and not really showing us, which kind of removes any need for reading into subtext. Because there's like just like with my own personal viewing experience of these movies over the years, it's almost like there's nothing to read into, because that's just like what it is and what we're told.
Yeah.
We're told it's happening, but we can't from my own sorry. From my personal experience of viewing the movies, it's hard to get invested in the characters and the dynamic without the context of the Clone Wars, because that's really where I saw the subtext of their relationships play out, because I got to just see them interact more in everyday situations and instances. Like we were just talking about the opening and like seeing Obi-Wan and Anakin's dynamic. The scene where they're in the elevator and it stops and they're kind of like going back and forth is just peak Obi-Wan and Anakin dynamic. Like they're brothers. Obi-Wan is supposed to be the older one. He jumps out the thing and they're just like going back and forth. It's funny, it's engaging, it makes you like the characters and it makes you like the relationship that they have together.
I love it.
But that, to me, that's like the only time we ever get to see that relationship really play out between the two. And there's like little instances here and there, like after that kind of harken back to that moment, like that they must have like gotten lightning in a bottle in the writer's room with that scene, and then they just like, all right, we have like a whole other 2 hours to fill out of these two interacting. What else we got? So that's kind of where I fall short in Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship in this movie, is that it feels far and in between of those genuine moments where we are shown their relationship instead of just told their relationship. This goes back to sorry.
Does it not feel like we're just witnessing like their relationship devolve? Like it makes sense that moment happens at the beginning of the movie and then we see the progressive fracturing of their relationship. Because to me, the Clone Wars, it doesn't show subtext. To me, the Clone Wars makes subtext text. It's like the opposite. But I feel like in Revenge of the Sith, and there is no logical answer to this. Like, I think it just worked. Like, whatever I get in my first viewing is like the emotional reaction that I have is what guides like everything else. Like, there's no like proper logic to how I feel about it.
Totally. And I can't explain why it doesn't click for me, because it just doesn't, and why like Clone Wars clicks so much better. And that can go back to just like storytelling tactics. Like George's storytelling tactics have been discussed at length over the years among the Star Wars fandom. And and the way that like Dave Filoni and those writers and those animators chose to tell that story and that dynamic is fundamentally different than how George would have told it. So like different different narrative voices, different storytelling voices come through in both shows, or the shows and the movies in Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, it's just there's no there's no logical explanation.
Well, I mean, it does harken back to like George having full creative control on one and having a team of people on the other. So it is going to feel different. But before we move on to the next section, I also want to do quick hits because rewatching this, there's so much that I didn't realize happened in the first section of the movie. Like there are things I thought happened much, much later.
Yes.
So just real quick, if you guys have any notes on the furthering of Anakin and Padme's relationship, no, that's because I'm so in love with you.
Oh, good God!
So love has blinded you.
That's like they tried to be cute. Just if you wanted to write that, George, let a woman write that. For the love of God. Like
Well,
it was done so much better than that.
What that scene was trying to accomplish was very genuine, and it is very integral to the dynamic between
it makes sense
Padme and Anakin, but it's just not executed very well.
He's got no game. Like Padme has to teach him everything.
He was raised. Look how he was raised.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so look at Obi-Wan. He's flirting with everybody who crosses sabers with him.
Listen, Obi-Wan is an anomaly. He is not the rule. Okay, let's not.
No, you're right.
Obi-Wan pulls off a mullet in a way no human should, and by that alone,
so I was like telling every single time this gets brought up, like it's always that tree. Qui-Gon, player status. Obi-Wan,
what does that even mean?
Higher. Obi-Wan even better, and then you get Anakin. It's like, what went wrong, man? You had Obi-Wan as a mentor.
He fell in love with the first girl he saw, and he just decided at the very end, yep, there's no point in really looking at other girls anymore. So
yeah, I mean, it's like the dialogue.
He's demisexual.
Yeah.
I have.
Go ahead.
I feel like there's nothing wrong. No, you go ahead. I have nothing to add to this conversation except that it doesn't, again, like the punching thing. It wasn't even mean for someone to have game. What does it matter? Who cares?
Game doesn't matter. It's the dialogue mostly.
That it doesn't matter.
Hayden Christensen is really pretty in this movie. He's so pretty.
But also, I want to mention too, because in this first section, we also get, he first has the dream of Padme dying. Yes. He talks to Yoda about it. We also get the take a seat. All that happens in this first little section, but it caps off, and I love the ending of it because this is Padme saying, what if the democracy we've been defending no longer exists? And she's right. Like she starts to see this whole thing transforming, and that moment always hits me really hard. And I forgot all of this happens in the first bit of the movie.
It's insane. Like that, like the whole first half. Like yes, there's a ton going. Like the beginning scene, Anakin. We see like the beginning of the fall of Anakin, obviously by killing Dooku. And then you see him with the problem with Anakin always is as a character, he always tries to save everybody. His attachment is to the people that he loves. So right there off the bat, that's the next thing. Oh, he has to worry about a child now, and Padme, and then he gets the dreams again. But and think about this, Chaco. Even in that first, in the deleted scenes, there are the meaning of is it the 2000 or the 3000 delegation of the 2000? I think it is.
Well,
that's also happening there, and in those deleted scenes, Padme is talking to the senators and is like, we can trust the Jedi, and it's like they're like, what Jedi are we going to talk to? And Padme's like, I got one, and it's like you find out with the rest of the movie, it's like that's probably not the way you wanted to go. I probably would have chosen Obi-Wan, to be honest. In that point, but
well, I mean, and that's what it was in the novelization. She realized she was thinking of Obi-Wan, not Anakin. Yes. In that moment,
and in the novelization,
and it's really interesting.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say but seeing Anakin getting hit from all angles, right? Because he's getting hit with all the fear, hate, anger, jealousy. Like he's getting hit from all angles. Like because he's got the jealousy with the being on the council but not being a master. He's got Padme and his obsession with her, and you see that in that scene. Like I'm so in love with you, and then you've got the kid to worry about and the fear with the dreams, and you see them getting hit from all sides. And then of course you see Anakin and Obi-Wan giving the "May the Force be with you" and saying goodbye to each other, kind of for the last real time as like master and apprentice. And you have that all at the same time, and now Obi-Wan's not there to kind of help balance him out at all. And that all in that first section is it's just the entire setup for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I feel like Anakin, a lot of the choices that he makes, or at least like the things that he verbalizes, they really are gut reactions of self-preservation. Because at one point, like anything that threatens Anakin's personal worldview or Anakin's perception of what should happen, he immediately has something to say about it. And he immediately, not deflects, but he immediately is ready to deny that, because Anakin's worldview and Anakin's perception of how the world works and how things should be is so fragile at this point in his life because of the years of manipulation from Palpatine, and other reasons, but something whatever. That I have a lot of quotes from Anakin that like written down of him like wildly vacillating between the hero of the Jedi, the chosen one, somebody that will like protect and bring balance to the Force, a grade A hero. And then immediately he'll flip to like blaming everyone around him, not being willing to take responsibility or see things from other perspectives. Like I wrote down that after he's given the assignment to spy on Palpatine, he goes, "You're asking me to do something against the Jedi Code." And then next to that, I have, "Anakin, you decapitated a defenseless old man yesterday."
What about the Tusken Raiders? What about them? Huh? Come on, man.
That was a couple years ago, though. So who's thinking? I'm sure they're fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting, and the love has blinded you thing is another one of the reasons I don't like Anakin good and reasons I don't like Anakin bad columns, because the love has blinded you. It kind of just makes me roll my eyes. Again, like the concept is important. I get what they were trying to do with that scene to like show this wall and understanding of how Anakin perceives his relationship with Padme and how Padme perceives her relationship with Anakin. But it really fell flat in the delivery and the execution of it. Versus right after that, Anakin's dream sequence of Padme dying in childbirth, and then their conversation after that is so genuine, and they sound like an actual couple working through this struggle that he's going through.
Yes.
And it's such a useful and impactful moment of dialogue and like character work that we see for Anakin and Padme. So that this goes back to the tonal whiplash I feel watching this movie. Yeah. But that's just one of the scenes that I feel like really it accomplishes better what the Love Has Blinded You scene was trying to do, I feel like.
Yep.
I can see that. All right, let's jump forward to the middle section here. And God, so much happens. I wanted to start this with Anakin, having the conversation with Palpatine where he hears about Darth Plagueis the Wise, and is it possible to learn this power? And at the same time, this is when Obi-Wan is heading off to Utapau, and there's all these shenanigans going on. What jumps out at you guys from this middle section here?
The fact that Palpatine manipulated the Jedi into having their best Jedi leave the Jedi Temple at the moment that he wanted them to. Because think about it. Yoda's gone, Obi-Wan's gone, and I mean Mace is there, but like that's it. Like the two power players in this whole thing are off-world. So now the ones that can really talk Anakin down, Obi-Wan is off on a mission, and Palpatine purposely made it that way. He knew that the council wasn't going to put Anakin in that position, which ultimately put him in this position of like, oh well, they don't trust me, and he's able to manipulate Anakin because he's the ultimate villain because the manipulation of both sides and the way he does it is just fantastic, just incredible how he was able to turn a whole Jedi Order against one person, or him to turn. Well, it's on both sides because not everybody that there's no one party here that is wrong.
And how he was able to turn the entire Senate and the entire Republic
Yes.
against the Jedi. That goes to the end, but I have so many notes about instances of Palpatine being a master manipulator in the language that he uses. Because he constantly is using this like subjective morality language to seed this distrust into Anakin in every chance he gets, talking down the Jedi, saying that like they don't deserve you. What do they know? Like, I know you, Anakin. I know you. They don't know you. Why would you like? Don't you see what they're trying to do? Just over and over again to Anakin. And there was this really there was this moment right before the Darth Plagueis speech that really struck out to me, because Palpatine is going back and forth of saying, like, don't you know, like, the Sith, they don't teach you what the Sith really believed, so how do you even know that the Jedi are right? And Anakin says, like, wholeheartedly, the Jedi are selfless, they only think about other people. And there was a moment where I genuinely believed that Anakin did believe that about the Jedi, that somewhere deep down he does believe that about the Jedi, and you can kind of see that on Palpatine's face, because Anakin says that to him, and Palpatine doesn't have anything in response to that. So he completely shifts gears and talks about Darth Plagueis the Wise. He realizes he's hit a wall in attacking Anakin's relationship with the Jedi. So he switches gears to Anakin's other weakness, which is preserving Padme's life with the Darth Plagueis story.
Yep.
Rewatching it, I also was watching that scene, like counting the fallacies of like, oh, and the Jedi do not. Or he's like, the Jedi don't trust me, and it's like, yeah, nor do they trust democracy. And you're like,
For that matter,
that's a hell of a leap, bro. Like,
yeah.
Whoa.
Well, it's the ultimate gaslighter.
Yeah.
Like everything he creates, he turns it against somebody else. So he creates all these instances, he creates all these conflicts, and he'll turn it around. Like that idea of the Sith, when Anakin says, "Oh, the Sith only care about themselves and only care about power," and he turns it around and the Jedi don't. And like asking the questions like, like, oh, are they really that selfless? They're just selfless because they're just doing it for themselves. It's that ultimate flip, like turning those words around. He does it for every single instance in that section.
And I know we're a little bit past it, but I think my favorite example is putting Anakin on the council.
Yes.
Anakin was Palpatine's proxy on the council. If you are someone's proxy, you don't get a vote yourself. He put him in a position where he would be on the council, but he really couldn't be made master, and it's, I don't know, it's just such genius little plays here and there.
The thing about Anakin is he knows how special he is. Like, he knows that he's really, really talented, and obviously he has all of these skills, and he knows that he can outshine his master in many ways. And I feel like a whiplash type of personality, or a way of reacting to the world, I guess is a better way to put it, only makes sense in that context, because he has no sense of order, really. Like, sure, there's the Jedi Order, like he has that for some sense of stability, I guess. That he has that for some sense of rules, and in his, I'm sure in his training and in his relationship, like there is some sense of like protocol that he's following, but we don't see anyone. We don't see contemporaries of him, and we see younglings and we see masters, but we don't like really see other people his age who are. We don't see other like Padawan relationships in in the film. So he really is kind of in a class of his own, and since everything about his existence as in the Jedi Order has been a special case, has been an exception, has been like a weird situation, things perpetually are set up to feel unfair because there's nothing to compare it to. Like, if you're in a class, like if you're in a class with a ton of other Jedi and that this is just what happens if you don't find a kyber crystal, you just know this is what happens. If you have a clear established sense of order, like established sense of the way that things go and what the consequences for certain things are. And so while Anakin is like surely treated like harshly sometimes, like he doesn't have a clear like meter, like measuring stick to see when he's also being treated like exceptionally in a good way either. So it must be very jarring to have no precedent, to have like he's just kind of floating in space, like everything feels personal to him because it is personal. Like everything's an exception and everything's like sometimes they'll bend the rules and sometimes not. So I think it must be a very like tremendously difficult space to be in.
No, yeah.
Yeah, like
And
we
you
were just
always see him
talking-
like having to humble himself. He's always like intentionally having to kind of pull himself back and humble himself. Like, oh, I'm sorry for getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry for like not respecting your teachings. Like he's always he starts to move out, and then because the Jedi Order has told him, he tries to come back in, and he's always
He's like
battling
on
with
the
that.
extremes, and like
Yeah.
he'll go like way off book and then kind of I guess like apologize, but it's like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Have you seen Cinema Therapy's like video? They're a YouTube channel, and like it's like a therapist and someone else, and they react to movies and they kind of talk about like the psychology of characters. Well, there's one I definitely recommend looking up. I think the video is called Villain Therapy, Anakin Skywalker, and they talk about like what might be going through his head, and they like analyze Anakin's character, and I think it's a very like fair video.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about with ourselves. Like, it's not logical how we feel about like how we have differing feelings about the Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars. There's no logical way to how Anakin feels. That's just how he feels. Like, kind of going back to the things he was saying to Palpatine before the Darth Plagueis speech. He's kind of just repeating these teachings that he's been told by the Jedi Council for years. And maybe a part of him does believe it, but I don't think any part of him truly understands it. Because when he says the Sith only think inwardly about and only about themselves, he says that in a very othering way of like, I'm Anakin and these are the Sith and this is what they believe. And to me, that made me think that maybe Anakin loves deeply. Anakin cares about people. And in Anakin's mind, he does not see his love for other people as selfish. Because in his mind, if a Sith only cares about themselves, then they might not even be capable of love in Anakin's mind. But since Anakin does love people, which isn't selfish according to the teachings of like the Sith and the Jedi, then there's no way he could possibly be acting like a Jedi, or that the way he is expressing his love and his feelings is bad or selfish in any way.
Oh, yeah.
I love how St. Pat says Anakin is reaching his gifted kid burnout.
True. I mean, Xanthi hit it right on the head. Like there is no measuring stick for Anakin Skywalker. I mean, we get it in a Phantom Menace. Oh, he's got the highest midichlorian count. Like that. Like this is insane. And even to talk about like the Chosen One prophecy. So I think it's so funny how in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan is the one that is like questioning the prophecy, and Mace and Yoda in Attack of the Clones are like, no, it's got to be true. It's got to be true. And then we fast forward 3 years and it's completely the opposite. Like when they're on the gunship and Obi-Wan's like, is he not supposed to bring bring balance to the Force? And Mace goes, so the prophecy says. And then Yoda has a prophecy misread could have been. But Obi-Wan at that point is like all in. He's seen what Anakin has done in these 3 years during the Clone Wars, losing his limb to Count Dooku, and just going through everything that's happened to him in the Clone Wars. Like he's full in. I just think it's interesting the comparison between those two, especially for the Chosen One, because like Fancy said, there was no measuring stick. There is no measuring stick for him because he's damned if he does. He's damned if he does, or damned if he didn't. You know what I mean?
And like the difference between Anakin and Obi-Wan there is like Obi-Wan you see in this movie is a true believer. He is a true believer in the Jedi and the Jedi Code. He's a true believer in the Republic. Like he is all in. Like everything about what they stand for, he is about. But Anakin questions everything. Everything, the system, the Jedi. Like he's always questioning all of it. Like you could really see that that battle there.
Well, even in the Clone Wars, he doesn't use typical Jedi words. He uses order. He doesn't use balance. I'm gonna bring order to the Republic. Right there, that right there is like not Jedi at all. Because if you think about it, the Jedi way is to bring balance to the Force, whereas Anakin is very much like order this, order that, and I found it
whatever
so
it takes to get it done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sort of is like his gifted kid thing, where it's like he knows that he'll do he'll do the thing to get the A and whatever, but he doesn't like care about having a deep understanding. He's just doing it. Like he'll say kind of the right thing, like he'll whatever, but then he'll just be like, now let's lightsabers out, like which is kind of where that's where he shines. And like I always like have said this throughout the prequels and the original trilogy as well, like Anakin Vader. Anakin has never been a political, like he's never understood politics. He's never been a political person, and he's not like that in the prequels. He doesn't understand. He's fighting for the Republic because that's just what someone of his talent, that's at that point in history, that's what someone with his talent is doing. Because that's how it's set up. In another era, he would probably be doing something else. But at that time, that's what the Jedi are doing. So that's what he's doing. He doesn't actually care. Like even when he talks to Padme and in Attack of the Clones, like that conversation in the meadow is like, it's like not even that serious. Like he says really sketchy things for sure, but he doesn't like believe it. He's saying it because he doesn't really understand. Like he's sort of like, democracy, dictatorship, like whatever works. Like he doesn't even want to get into it. He doesn't. And in the Clone Wars cartoon, I think it kind of goes along. I feel the same way. And then when he's Vader as well, like Tarkin's running the ship. Like at no point is Vader like taking charge and talking about like the detailed stuff of the Death Star. He's like, he just takes side trips to go face Obi-Wan and to like do more Force stuff.
He's just,
as the gifted kid, he was always as the gifted kid, he's always like, well, I've got power and I can get things done. So that's just how
he
things
wants
should
to do stuff.
Get done
because he can.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Like if I'm the chosen one and I'm the one that's supposed to bring balance to the Force, why can't all the power be in one person's hands?
Yeah. Speaking of power, unlimited power. Real quick, we can't move on without talking about Anakin becoming Vader, and which happens in the final third of the movie. He just is Vader. Yeah. If any thoughts. Also, we have Obi-Wan just being a G.
Sad boy Obi-Wan. Beginning of Sad Boy Obi-Wan.
But before that, like there are several moments where he's fighting, but you could tell he's having a great time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He literally Obi-Wan smiles like as Grievous says the words "attack, Jedi," like telling him to attack. Obi-Wan has the hugest smile. Like we focused on that. He has the hugest smile on his face, and I'm actually really glad that we kind of are touching on the Obi-Wan and Grievous fight. It's really fun. I love the Obi-Wan and Grievous fight. It's very visually interesting, just with the aspect of this cyborg has 4 arms and 4 lightsabers. My biggest grievance with Grievous is I don't understand why George decided to give him a cough. It ruins literally every scene. Like if they didn't give Grievous a cough, he would have been like the perfect like minor villain, like background villain. He's tall, he's scary, he's got a cool voice, so he's like kind of goofy but also really terrifying. And then they just had to ruin it with the cough. Like there was when he's like extending his 4 arms, I was so excited. I'm like, this is so cool. Grievous is so cool. And then he goes, and I'm like, all right, that kind of took me out of it.
I was inspired by George Lucas's actual bronchitis at the time. Seriously.
Well,
Yeah.
George, we don't need to know about bronchitis.
Well, and also at that point, the 2003 Clone Wars like series had come out, and during that time, like Mace Windu crushes Grievous, and that was the explanation then. We don't really have a canon explanation for it now, but like the Grievous in Obi-Wan fight, it's up there. It's a great. It's just great. I like what they did with the special editions now, where they added all the clone voices in it. I was like, yes. After watching the Clone Wars, I'm like, yes. I need to hear more of Tamora Morrison coming down. He's like, come on, let's go, let's go.
I wonder like how many just offshoot lines Tamora had to record. I'm like, Tamora, they just like had him say anything. They're just filling space with him.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I ain't complaining. Gotta love some Tamora Morrison.
Like, how many times do you want me to say "come on"? I find it funny that like that we spend 3 movies of Obi-Wan killing people from the low ground. Like with this Grievous fight, like it's 3 movies of Obi-Wan killing people from the low ground. So when it comes to the end with the high ground, like Obi-Wan knows better than anybody what to do on the low ground. So he's got this covered. Like whatever you throw at him, he's got it.
It's funny. That's like my cat. Like when she's playing, like I don't know what she evolved from, or like if any cats in the wild do this, but she'll like lay down, like she'll jump and everything, but then she'll like lay down and be like. She'll lay on her back while trying to do stuff. Like she just wants to lay on her back while hunting. I just don't get it.
She's like, I'm hungry, but I'm tired. I actually love it though, because it feels to me, and I don't know if it was intentional, at least at this point in time, but it really feels like they do it where Obi-Wan is just baiting him out. Like he's just he tells him that, and I think this is echoed in the Maul fight in Rebels, because he's taught. How often do you think he's talked about how he fought Maul, and Anakin is trying to do something similar to the move that Obi-Wan did against Darth Maul back in the very first episode. And I don't know, it just makes me think of when he fights Maul, he mimics Qui-Gon to make Maul do the thing. Mm-hmm. And I just think he is a masturbator.
Grievous is the one character that I remember being like, I'm not really sold on him. I don't really. He's what, like, I get the same thing I feel about Snoke is how I feel about Grievous. I mean, the Clone Wars does like add more to Grievous, but I really, in the prequels, when I don't feel like Grievous is that. He doesn't really scare me. Like he doesn't feel like a very big threat. But I think I have this issue in Star Wars in general. It's not an issue. It's just nothing feels like almost nothing feels like a threat in Star Wars except for the existential threat of losing yourself, of losing your loved ones, of darkness. And that's why I think, like, for me, my central interest in Star Wars is still Jedi Force mysticism stuff. It's not like, I understand that some people are more interested in like smugglers or like bounty hunters and or pilots, and that's fine. But like for me, I have a hard time with, I don't know, just someone who knows how to use lightsabers. Like I'm sort of like, obviously that's not going to be a big threat. Like they're gonna, sure, they might drag it out, and they did. They might drag it out and make us think that he is hard to kill because they'll just make it take up a lot of minutes, and then he'll like be waving around 10 lightsabers and whatever. It'll be a nice spectacle for a few minutes, but at no point am I like scared of Grievous. At no point. I'm just waiting for the real threat, which is like the threat of Anakin's like soul. That's Star Wars to me, is those existential things. It's not like villains.
And to be honest, I actually think that's kind of the point. Like without the cough, and if they made him more imposing, Grievous would be a lot scarier. But instead, they made him kind of
silly.
They made him silly, and the way he is always, acquiescing to Dooku and to Palpatine, he was so subservient to them, and he even held his cough while he's talking to him, so he doesn't like embarrass himself, and so it doesn't detract from anything else. And I think that's something that the original trilogy did really well. The first movie, Vader is this terrifying, imposing, phantom, and in the second one we see his helmet come on, and you're like, he's like Mr. Potato Head under there, but he's still dangerous. And then in the last one,
that's what everyone
Potato
thought.
Head, a menacing Mr. Potato Head. Don't. Ooh.
Yeah, and then the last one, he was just modern day Billy Joel, and that was cool as well.
But I agree with you. I think Revenge of the Sith does it. Like, I like how it's done in Revenge of the Sith. Like, at no point am I also worried that that's just where they're going to stop with like, oh, Grievous is the villain of this movie. Like, which I can't say the same about some of the things that have come out more recently in Star Wars. I can't say the same of like where I feel like the threat is. I don't have a good sense of the threat. And yeah, I never felt that Grievous was a threat or that he was even supposed to be a serious threat. If anything, a diversion, sort of like the Separatists in general, were a threat, but like because they were part of this bigger plan. Like that's what's so interesting about them as villains or temporary villains, is Separatists, Grievous, all these things. Like we the audience know that something is fishy, like something is up, where that cannot be the whole story. And that's why I think the prequels are amazing. Not always like executed the best from an objective lens, I guess, but I think the prequels are very like, in Revenge of the Sith, I think they're just very like, they're doing something that the original trilogy didn't do. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess this is more of a final thought, but so I could save it, but yeah, I think George Lucas.
I agree with you on that. I think the story of the prequels is better than any of the other trilogies. Like the underlying story behind it and the development and I agree. Even though original trilogies were kind of my thing, like still, but the story of the prequels dominates.
Yeah, original trilogy is hero's journey, blah blah blah. It's been done a billion times, but it was done super super well, and I love them, etc. But when people try to do things based on Star Wars and try to adapt the hero's journey, like how many times are we going to hear about the monomyth? Fine, like forgetting that George Lucas himself is not fixed in the version of himself that was making stuff in the 70s and 80s. Like the prequels are not the hero's journey at all. It's something completely different. Like he himself has evolved from that, and he like I which is why I think it is kind of a losing battle to think of like George Lucas would have liked this, or like to try to measure like current Star Wars stuff against like George Lucas would have loved this, or like George Lucas would have done. What would George Lucas have done? Because the thing is, George Lucas is an artist, and we actually don't know what he would have done. We don't know. We can guess based on this fixed, between a few decades of him where he did have. We can judge based on that, but he was constantly like taking risks and surprising us. So he himself moved on from the pretty vanilla story that A New Hope is. Love it, but like it's pretty vanilla story.
He himself specifically said that he's like, I want to take risks. I don't want to, people aren't going to like what he talked about just doing the whole thing about the wills and it being some weird trippy thing. He also, his favorite arc is the droid arc on the Clone Wars. He's
He's
an art
school kid, man. I
through and through.
Yeah.
I do love something that I will always like respect about George and his vision with the prequels is how unapologetic he is about executing these grandiose concepts that just didn't fit in with like current modern Hollywood storytelling standards. And he kind of even did the same thing back when he was making the originals. Even like the opening text crawl. I think that got him like kicked out of like the Screenwriters Guild because it was so against the grain of what modern film standards is supposed to be.
Yeah,
so
you had to put the actors' names first.
Yeah. Even back then, George Lucas has always been one to not give in
for good and bad.
Like there's pros and cons, obviously, but that's something that you have to respect him for his drive to seek out this vision that he has or seek out this idea that he has. And like we saw in the originals, like the story expanded more when different directors held the reins, but he was still a writer or like other producers came on, and it changed the tone from what George set as a base with New Hope. But the prequels, I agree with like what everybody's been saying, really are so different from not even just the originals themselves, but just general storytelling standards and like tactics of that time period in Hollywood and in movie making, I feel like. So that is something that no matter how the prequels like turned out or what the public opinion of the prequels turns into, that's something that I think you always have to respect about what George was trying to do with them. This really is getting into like final thought territory, though.
It is. So before we get there, let's because we are running long as I thought we might. But that being said, let's real quick hit the end. We did talk about the high ground moment and stuff a little bit. If you guys have more thoughts on the whole Battle of the Heroes, the March on the Temple, Order 66, all that good stuff, let's just hit the last third of it. And then also Lila Blob in the chat said, still pretty sad about Padme being so passive in comparison to the previous two movies. Mentions the deleted scenes.
Yes.
I had also mentioned the concept art of Padme with a knife. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. But yeah, if you guys want to hit the last third real quick, and then we'll just in the interest of time, I'll go around and call people for this one. But Sid, your thoughts?
When I won't dwell on the scene where Mace confronts Sidious for the first time, but something that I did really appreciate about that scene is, people make fun of prequel dialogue all the time, but the exchange of "I am the Senate" to Mace saying "not yet," and Palpatine like steeling himself and deciding in that moment how he's going to react to this and saying it's treason then is a wonderful, amazing piece of dialogue and an amazing example of writing, because you see that Palpatine realizes that he has been found out, and he is kind of still relying on his words and his manipulation and like trying to not talk his way out of this, but he's relying on what he does best, is like manipulating and intimidating with I am the Senate. That outlines his goal, that outlines what he wants to do. Mace saying not yet presents an obstacle that Sidious can't ignore, and his face dropping and saying it's treason then, it means so much more than just like it's treason then. It signifies like how he's planning on spinning this on the Jedi, what his intentions are to Mace in that moment. That is him executing his plan and getting rid of that obstacle that Mace is presenting him in the moment and like as the whole Jedi Order.
Real quick, I love that you bring that up because like that moment is so often played as a meme, but like that line, "I am the Senate," is just so powerful. They're approaching him like, "Hey, we're just trying to make sure that when this is over, you're gonna give the powers back. Now that it is over, are you gonna do that?" And he's like, "I'm king of everything now." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay. So we're moving to." All right. Let me consult the flow chart. Ignite lightsaber, not yet. Plus,
yeah.
Mace is a man of few words, but his words always have power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I have so many notes on this part. Where was
give
I?
give us two more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like for the whole ending, like the whole final act.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay,
We
no,
spent a lot
it's
of time
okay
on the
because
first one.
I can do that. I can do that. So the Battle of the Heroes. My hot take is it would have been perfect if they cut out all of the fighting that they did inside the compound. Because it, to me, it really like cuts the tension and doesn't really make a lot of sense for what the fight is supposed to represent. That's kind of been one of my personal gripes about all of the lightsaber fights in the prequels, is that it feels like they're happening on a sound stage and you can literally overlay any kind of background you want, and most of the fights would end up the same way. The exceptions to that are the parts of the Battle of the Heroes that take place outside. Because Obi-Wan and Anakin, they're using like the different platforms around them and just like interacting with the environment and making the actual visuals of the prequels and the visuals of the fight choreography very visually interesting and visually engaging. On the other hand, when they're inside, they literally just kick each other a couple times. And that's it. Like they kick each other like 3 or 4 times. The one thing that I would save from the parts where they're inside is the moment where Anakin and Obi-Wan are like trying to force push each other backwards. It is a very like powerful visual and metaphor for the two of them right now, but they should have done that outside. Also, they start outside, go inside, and then go back outside because they have to, because they're like, okay, how are we gonna like cook Anakin Skywalker? Let's take him inside. Oh wait, we gotta take him outside if we want to burn him. We gotta take him all the way back outside. So if in the writer's room for that scene, they just got rid of those inside parts, I think it really would be one of the greatest fights of all time. There's just that little bit that just cuts the tension for me, that kind of like makes me bored with it. And then as soon as they go back outside again, I'm like, okay, I'm invested again. Like I'm visually interested. I am like mentally interested in the representation of the fight to their personal like ideals and circumstances. And then one last point. You said I got 2, right?
Yep.
The ending shot and the ending sequence of Revenge of the Sith is, I think, one of the most powerful endings visually and emotionally in all of Star Wars, because of the acknowledgement of where all of this is supposed to be leading to and what all of it was for in the end, because you first have Leia's theme play when you see her with Bail and his wife on Alderaan, and then you hear Luke's theme when it cuts to Obi-Wan giving baby Luke to Owen and Beru on Tatooine, and then it goes into Binary Sunset, and that progression of those themes playing up and playing into each other, and then the final visual of the Binary Sunset with Owen and Beru looking onwards and Obi-Wan just like looking at them, contemplating everything he's been through and considering everything that might happen going forward. It is such a perfect bridge between everything that these characters and we as an audience have been through with experiencing the prequels into what got almost everybody here in the first place of the original prequels. Because I've always been of the opinion that what Star Wars is about was told to us in the very beginning, and I mean the very beginning in the 1970s, where the title of the movie, and I know this became the title afterwards, but it's called A New Hope. Star Wars is always supposed to be about hanging on to hope, and the ending of Revenge of the Sith is a perfect bridge between feeling completely hopeless at the state of the galaxy and the state of all the characters to what we know is coming, and that hope that we as the audience are clinging on to for these characters in the future. I cried last night while watching it.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. And how about you, Nick?
Yeah. So especially first watching Revenge of the Sith, like it was always a leap for me that suddenly Anakin, I know they set things up, but that suddenly Anakin was like pledging his allegiance to Darth Sidious. You know, like that was a bit of a jump for me. It just felt sudden, but the evolution of like Anakin really becoming Darth Vader after that, I think is brilliantly done because it's all visuals. Everything you see of Anakin becoming this is like, you know, him walking up the temple, a lightsaber, like him just standing on Mustafar, like with a tear, like when you see the Sith eyes and when you don't, like it's all visuals that show his. What's that?
No, I was just agreeing with you. This just brought me back to the Kenobi trailer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know what I have to do, but I don't have the power to do it.
Yeah. And speaking of the inside, the outside, inside, out, that whole like fight, essentially the design of it mirrors Empire Strikes Back with Luke and Vader. Like them kind of standing on that kind of like outside kind of circle and then ending up inside. I'm not saying it's done better,
No. That makes sense, though.
Inside again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably where they got some of that inspiration from. But the whole kick thing I could have done without.
That makes sense.
I
mean, George Lucas loves saying it's like poetry, it rhymes. Poetry doesn't always have to rhyme, George. So it's okay to do something different sometimes.
Yeah. He loves reusing visuals.
That's
the only thing that
him.
always drove me nuts is like Yoda giving up when he did. It's like he kind of fell and he's like, well, I lost now. But like he was still fine. He's got the soldiers coming in and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean,
the novelization
that
pays
whole
off
like
so well.
Battle of Rose. Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
But just watching the movie for the first time though, that's what I was like. But Yoda, come on. But yeah, the setup at the end, like that kind of the New Hope. First of all, like the sudden Qui-Gon moment. Yeah, I know we get a lot more in Clone Wars, but just suddenly, wait, Con, what? And then that's all you're left for years. And
so good.
You get more information from that.
I really
know, it
hope
kinda
we
leaves
get
you
it in
hanging, but-
Obi-Wan. I want it so bad.
But at that point, you think this is the end of Star Wars. Are we never getting the answer to this? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then a binary sunset, like ending with that visual, of course. Anytime that'll get you, and of course the theme to that. But I mean, it is the ultimate. The end, like the evolution of this movie into A New Hope. They're like mirror images of each other, because like one goes from like light to dark, another one goes from dark to light. You know, it's like you see this progression of this person going from here to there, and I think just that combination of those that whole arc between them, I think, is brilliant.
Yeah, love it. And how about you, Luke?
Battle of the Heroes is probably one of my favorite Star Wars lightsaber fights. There's a lot of unnecessary acrobatics, but you have to remember from a narrative standpoint, these are two Jedis that have known each other for a very long time, and the emotional stakes of this is very much the reason why they went all in on this, because this fight is supposed to be two Jedi at their peak battling it out. It not only from a philosophical, because one is fighting for good, the other one has lost themselves, but it's just the game that they play. They know which move is going to come next, and just it's done so well. I could have gone without like the lines swinging. I could have gone without that, but that's like my only real complaint about
I
this
hate
saber
that part
fight.
so much.
I love that part so much.
Swinging around and
so
all like,
George of the Jungle moment.
But the thing is that
loved it.
that fight could have been so much more. Like, there were so many things planned out for that. Like, if you watch in the deleted scenes, like, there's so many other things, acrobatic crap that they were gonna do. But like that, and like the music in the last second half of the movie, banger after banger after banger after banger. It's just amazing what John Williams did for, especially Revenge of the. I think Revenge of the Sith has the best soundtrack, because it has so many great themes in it. And I just really, really enjoyed the later half, and it like Xanthi was saying, or it was either Xanthi or Skid, I can't remember, but like you see the hero's journey, but it's the opposite. You see the fall of a hero. And I feel like that story isn't told a ton in fiction in general. Seeing the good guy turn and become the villain, I think that was the most interesting thing that I ever got from Revenge of the Sith. So those are kind of my final thoughts.
And I think that because you knew where it was going
Yeah.
with trilogy, you knew where it was headed. Could tell
That's the thing.
story and not leave you disappointed at the end.
Breaking Bad exists.
Yeah.
But I think that the anti-hero, that all of those became popular after.
No, it's true. It's true.
I recently read something that said, like, a historical perspective of Star Wars, that said that the prequels were like the Star Wars prequels are what made prequels a thing in the first place. And so that's interesting to think about. Like, now it's super common, but now there's origin stories for everyone. But George Lucas was really working without a template here.
Yeah.
It's always been the pioneer of practically everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's kind of like, the night Gwen Stacy died, for what that did for comics, because that was the first dark thing, and then all of the dark comics come after that period. But yeah, Xanthi, your thoughts?
So this is like this is a rare film for me where, like, I can, no matter how many times I watch it, I still watch it and hope for a different outcome. Like, I'm just like, no, like, it's like hurts to, like, I know how it's going to end, but somehow, like, a tiny part of my brain feels like maybe it could be different. Like, I don't get that with very many movies at all. And this is one where it's just, it's really heart-wrenching to, like, watch how the end unfolds. especially knowing that someone like Anakin, when he pledges himself to people or to like the Order, or even when he pledges himself to Sidious, like I don't think he really feels it. Like I think it's just one more example of him saying what he think is the thing he's supposed to say to like please his new mentor, just like he said to the Jedi. Like I don't think there was like a singular switch that like a chip like an Order 66 chip that went off in his head or something. Like I don't think that's what happened with Anakin. I think he just decided, yeah, exactly. It's like I think he just this is the path he thought was best for him at the moment, and like we know from like other materials now, like Afra and the novelization and other stuff, that like he still is sort of like, wait, am I doing like he still is like very gray area. Like he still is not completely, there still is like there's a lot more emotional complexity in his switch than people give him credit for. And
Absolutely.
also like Chaco knows this. When I think about Darth Vader, I just think about how Darth Vader always was Darth Vader is always conflicted, like to some extent.
Oh, absolutely.
And so at this point, it's just I feel so much pain for Anakin, like obviously for everyone else too, not just Anakin. Okay, everyone's kind of going through some shit, but like Anakin himself.
We only care about Anakin. We don't care about everybody.
Yeah. But like Anakin also is watching this train wreck happen, and we see it in that we hear his pain when he's like, all of this, and Padme still died. Like he's like, and he did all of this, and now look where he's at. Like it all was for nothing. He thought that doing all this stuff would at least save that one thing, and no, like it's really, really bad times in Anakin land, and everyone else land. And I will say that like to touch back to the lines, like the dialogue, I think the like very theatrically staged dramatic dialogue really really elevates everything here. I think maybe at the time it was seen as very stilted and overly formal or something, but like I think to movies in 2022, and there's such a trend right now in Hollywood to have extremely naturalistic ways of speaking that feel almost like you're just watching someone's like it's more like trendy now to have something so naturalistic that you could just be watching someone's like, I don't know, like Instagram story, like vlog or something, or where and for sound people too, it's like almost a problem because they can't really get people to speak loud, and like it's hard to like pick up sound too, because actors will just be like so naturalistic that they're just like kind of mumbling, and like it's not the same clarity of like before, when technology was worse. You had to be a little bit more project. You have to project a little bit more with your voice, which is like watching the original trilogy is like that too. You're like, wow, these people are obviously all stage actors, or a lot of them are stage actors and everything. And so here I think like I like the commitment to it being this I like the commitment to the drama, and like the way that it doesn't try to like, I think that's why it doesn't feel like, to me, this movie doesn't feel like it's just it's trendy for the year it was released. Like it doesn't feel like trendy. Like it feels like it just doesn't feel, it feels more timeless than some other movies, even movies that I like, are just in terms of like the trends in the screenwriting and the delivery and the acting and all that kind of stuff. I also think musically it works because I think the drama, the dramatic like tension that is being built up in the dialogue is being matched by the music. Like the intensity and the complexity of the scenes is matched by the intensity and complexity of the music, and that is something that really takes me out of films when that doesn't happen. And I feel like that does not happen in a lot of films, where I feel like I feel sometimes, and I feel this way about some Star Wars things too. Like I liked Rogue One, but like there are some parts where I feel like the music was trying to make up for things that weren't carrying so much in the scene, and like a little bit vice versa in other parts. And I feel like maybe in some shows and other stuff too, where like maybe something intense was happening on screen, but the music's kind of just like pacing, like kind of just plodding along, not really with complexity, kind of just like a little bit boring to me. Obviously that's subjective, but I think like just the complexity of the music has not been like it's really hard to match that. And that's one of the things that like originally made Star Wars work is the way that the music was not just bangers. It was like really incredible compositions that were not just to like press play and go. It was like really that fit the scene and heightened like the emotions and just like made you wrap your brain around things in a different way and transported you to like a completely different dimension where you're believing that people are like fighting on Mustafar and really and like crying and everything like with different music that could have been so silly. It could have been cringy. Like who knows, you know? So that is like one thing I definitely appreciate.
Yeah, you can just listen to just the music and you know what's happening. You can turn off if you turned off their voices, you would still understand the movie, and that's rare.
Yeah, like it was always meant, you know, Star Wars was originally George Lucas had this feeling of like it could be an opera, like it could be something without words, and that's how he wanted it to play. And like I think one of my favorite things, which I only like noticed this in retrospect after like analyzing The Last Jedi, since that's what we do on my podcast is we analyze the Star Wars films 5 minutes at a time. So when the twins are born, when Luke and Leia are born, some people have asked like why didn't they play Luke and Leia's theme, because they had it at that time. And I think it's like shows remarkable restraint that they didn't play Luke and Leia's theme, because something that I think gets misinterpreted about leitmotifs and the way that themes should operate in film, or when people employ leitmotifs in films trying to like copy the way that it was done so powerfully in Star Wars, I think it's not really done well a lot of times, in my opinion, because it shouldn't be just a paint by numbers. Like this character appears, you put that theme. This thing happens, you put that theme. Make sure that it matches. Like no, but like the point of like the music is to it like withholds, or it like gives you something when you're not expecting it. Like it is an extra voice. It's an extra narrative like element in the film that is not just to accompany like Luke and Leia, because like we haven't earned Luke and Leia's theme at that point yet. Like the last time we heard Luke and Leia's theme prior like was obviously we heard it in Return of the Jedi, and we don't actually hear it again until The Last Jedi when Luke and Leia are saying goodbye. And I think that's like one of the most powerful scenes of The Last Jedi. And the way that like John Williams withheld Luke and Leia's theme all the way from Return of the Jedi until The Last Jedi, because their theme is really it's not just about the fact that Luke and Leia exist as people, so when they're together, no, it's like them finding each other in their like familial like bond. It's like them bonding. And when they're just babies being born, like that's not the point of the scene. It's the point of the scene in Return of the Jedi when they're talking about the fact that they're related. It's the point of the scene in The Last Jedi when they're reconciling. Anyway, I've kind of gone on, but like I think like that. But yeah, hopefully that was somewhat coherent.
No, that was wonderful. That was beautiful. I love it. Just real quick, for me, one of the things, so I don't love Battle of the Heroes as much as most people. It's an amazing fight, don't get me wrong, and certain aspects of it are beautifully done, like when like the kicking scene I think is kind of dumb, but like when Obi-Wan brings the saber down and Anakin just one hand just like presses it, and you're like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, the force push thing didn't really catch me, but the part right afterwards, how fast Anakin gets back up, rebounds, and is just back on the offensive, that part hits me super hard. And the whole fight to me, it's this. I actually prefer the inside part because it's a battle of cat and mouse. Because Obi-Wan's like,
Yes.
I cannot beat him on the offensive. I have to play my game in order to win, or else this is all over. Can I make it out of this? Like, we're in here. This favors him.
Mhm.
I'm not doing anything until it favors me. When after that scene, screaming "I hate you" and like the strings, like the music and stuff is just like
Yes.
it's too much, man. Like, I mean, like in a good way. Like it's all the best ways of just like I can just hear those strings and then I'm sad. Like
Emotional damage.
yeah.
And I think
Just
and I
straight
think I think Hayden's performance is excellent. For the record.
I can't imagine. I mean, there's a reason I'm not an actor, right? But the I have brought peace, freedom, security, and just if you had never seen the movie and you were handed that script and like acted, would you have done that? Would it have been the same? Would it have been as good? No,
No.
no, it wouldn't. I don't.
Nope.
So they put their foot in it, which is a good thing for Black people. When Obi-Wan returns to the ship, there's a brief moment with Padme. She's passed out. She wakes up and says, Obi-Wan, Anakin, is he all right? That's all she does. She asks if Anakin's all right, and then she passes back out. That's literally the first thing Vader does when he wakes up. Padme, is she okay? Is she all right? And I don't know, that to me, that's beautiful. That's a special moment.
Mm-hmm.
The way her heartbeat ends and his begins, to me is just really beautiful. There is, I always laugh at the very end when they're in where Obi-Wan, Yoda and Bail are in the conference room, because Yoda's feet aren't touching the ground, but the chair swivels naturally. And they're like, bro, you really using the Force to do that right now? Like, what is this? And they're like, in the director's commentary, they were just like, whatever, never mind. Like, we won't worry about that. There's, I feel like the last hour of this third act is near perfect.
Yes.
I can't think of any major missteps besides like just a couple random like choreography things that I would do better, or certain people holding the wrong lightsaber at certain moments, stupid stuff, but
yeah,
doesn't detract from it. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I want to thank you. I know we ran long. I want to thank everyone for coming out, for being part of this. This was amazing, and I'm having two of you are on for the very first time. Thank you so much. I need you guys to come back on again in the future. Also,
anytime.
Also,
Absolutely.
Nick, at some point we're gonna be swing dancing together, because
Yes, please.
I'm rusty.
Oh, cool.
But
Yeah,
like
swing
that's.
dance.
Oh yeah. I used to. Like I was at Atomic Ballroom for a long time.
Oh wow, yeah.
And,
Huntington Beach.
Well, Irvine. I lived
Irvine,
in Huntington, but yeah.
Irvine,
And just a guy who looks like Captain Hook, who just stands there and lets his chest hair blow in the fan above. Does he still hang out there?
What?
I haven't seen him in a while.
Okay.
I know who you're talking about.
I just
That one.
he looks exactly like Captain Hook, and he just stands there proudly in this
Animated Captain Hook.
A mixture.
What's funny is this whole time I've actually been at a dance event with a bunch of people dancing. Right there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, let's go around one last time. If you guys have any final thoughts, I know I sent over notes. Anything you want to wrap up, and one final go around. If you have, thoughts on how this might affect Obi-Wan or whatever, and then also end with where we can find you and your amazing content. Once again, I'll start with Nick.
Wait, if anyone's
so,
going to talk about if anyone's going to talk about Obi-Wan and talk about the trailer, I haven't watched the trailer and I stay off news. So let me know so I can like not listen to if people are going to spoil
Okay.
I will
Obi-Wan.
give you the
I'm
the
removing-
spoiler warning.
I'll remove that from the.
Okay.
Don't answer
Okay.
that one.
Thank you.
Got it.
But yeah, final thoughts and where we can find you and your awesome content.
So I'm on TikTok, codename _ Fulcrum. You can see it there on the screen. And I mean, I just love everything Star Wars. You know, I like to make fun content, but also analysis and just geek out. But yeah, I mean, I love talking about this. So podcasts galore. Like I love just kind of being on here and getting to geek out. Love talking with all you all, and actually getting to actually talk to you in person and not just have to see your content. I get to speak to you. But I mean, Revenge of the Sith, you know, it's just such a hard-hitting movie that going into Kenobi, and I'm not going to talk about the trailer or anything, but just like the way that ends and the fact that we're, you know, getting something in between and all the heavy notes that it's ending on that we're starting off with, and getting to see that progress. Like I'm very excited to see all that. And I did watch Revenge of the Sith right before, because I was gonna go through the prequels anyway, leading up to Kenobi. But just watching this, and it just brings so much more to that, and just all the themes. And I'm really looking forward to all of it. So again, thank you, Chaco, for having me on. And yes, to the dancing.
And also, you know, I'm in Southern California. We'll be there for Star Wars Celebration. I know Luke will be as well. Hopefully, and Xanthi is in Los Angeles.
Day one. I'm in Long Beach now.
Oh, okay, nice.
Hey.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's
very
right.
close. Yeah.
And Sid, are you coming to it?
I'll hopefully have my Rex
I
cosplay then.
live in Pennsylvania. No, I unfortunately won't be there. I will be going to Galaxy's Edge for the first time in May, though, so I'm very excited about that.
Ooh.
Okay.
But no Star Wars Celebration for me this year, unfortunately. We will see, though, for the future.
Yeah, maybe in the future. But actually, while we're here, why don't we go ahead and have you give your final thoughts and where we can find you and your awesome content.
Well, you can find me, like I said at the beginning, anywhere. The name Skid Space. It's all one word, just SKIDSPACE. Pretty much anywhere. I do most of my Star Wars stuff is on TikTok, though. That's like TikTok is the platform that got me into the Star Wars community, despite being a Star Wars fan my whole life. So I will always be appreciative of TikTok and wonderful creators like you, Chaco, and everybody else here and everybody on that app for being such a welcoming place for me to finally be able to talk about one of the things that I love most. So yeah, Skid Space, pretty much anywhere. My feelings for the prequels themselves as movies has never been a strong one, I feel like. Again, like I said at the onset, my experience with this time period in Star Wars is most influenced by my experience of seeing the Clone Wars come out as being there for every episode every week, which probably is why it's more impactful to me than the prequels, because like I said, the prequels are kind of just a jumble in my brain. More than anything, this movie made me viewing it as I am now, like as an adult with more understanding of like Star Wars as a concept and just like critical media analysis, I can appreciate so much more what it did for Star Wars in general and for the character of Anakin Skywalker. I unfortunately, though, am still not an Anakin Skywalker fan. I'm so sorry to everyone here who really loves Anakin. Unfortunately,
We'll get you next time.
Yeah, you never know. This movie doesn't make me grieve the death of Anakin Skywalker. It makes me kind kind of grieve the birth of Darth Vader, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
So in a way, I feel like it did accomplish its goal for me personally. I don't know what it is. I just don't like Anakin, man. I like what his character is supposed to do, and I do think I love like Hayden Christensen. That's no knock to him. He's a wonderful actor, and there are moments and scenes in Revenge of the Sith that do a wonderful job at conveying who Anakin is and what he's going through. I just don't like who he is.
Super cool question. Do you like Kylo Ren?
No.
Okay, that checks out.
Yeah, I just and I made a TikTok about it recently, but for me, Anakin is my sister. Just infinitely talented, literally most talented person I've known. Amazing musician, singer. Got me into skateboarding, basketball, like snowboarding, wakeboard, all this stuff. Was far better than me at all of them. Can literally go into any room with any person and come out with a best friend, and like far beyond. And right now, because of how easy certain things came, made a lot of bad choices, and kind of fell to her own version of the dark side. And it's really sad. So whenever I see that, I feel a lot for Anakin. And so while he's nowhere near my favorite character, and you'll hear my content, I'm pretty hard on him because he made his decisions, and you're like, don't. I feel like
I will say
this will happen, and he did that, and that happened, and you're like, who? Don't blame them for telling you that. I don't know.
I will say this about Anakin in the prequels and specifically in Revenge of the Sith. Star Wars is great at nostalgia, so I think knowing what Anakin went through, what his whole arc was, seeing that play out, it makes any scenes with Vader from the original trilogy and anything to come out after that, like with like his scenes in Rebels, anything like with future Star Wars content that has happened after Revenge of the Sith, it makes you it makes me think a lot more deeply about the person that Vader was, and in those moments I grieve for the death of Anakin Skywalker, and that this movie is the credit for that. So even though Revenge of the Sith itself didn't make me feel anything for Anakin Skywalker, its existence and its context within other Star Wars material really does make me grieve for the person that he was.
Absolutely. Love it. And how about you, Xanthi?
I think when watching films and whatever, I think based on like what's popular at the time and what the trends are socially, and I don't know what's going on in the world, I think certain characters and types of characters are easier for fans to latch onto or to hold up as heroes, and other ones are easier to fall into kind of cliched I don't know, critiques. An example would be like the Jedi were dogmatic, and so like kind of like painting things with broad strokes is basically what I'm saying, and kind of deciding that like certain characters are like maybe more pure than others, or like had a better head on their shoulders, or had better decision making skills. And I think in the prequels, like the Tusken Raiders are, and the Tuskens are such a big example. Is like it wasn't really on in the mainstream public reception to like really care about the Tuskens like 20 years ago, but now it is. And so that there are just different ways that characters like that are being written now, and different ways that people are sort of starting to rethink some of the things that we took for granted before when we were first introduced to things. I think in Revenge of the Sith, or in the sequels, but especially Revenge of the Sith, Mace Windu is one of those characters where he was very easy to like he's one of those characters that like a lot of people don't like. I feel like Mace Windu gets like little to no love in terms of the Jedi. In like mainstream Star Wars culture. I don't know. Not that I know what that is, but you know what I mean? Like, and he is sort of like seen as this, I don't know, in a negative way, like in exemplifying all that the Jedi, all that the things that were bad about the Jedi Order at that time, like so stuck to their rules and so like by the book and so like strict and so like all that stuff. But I think Mace Windu is one of those characters that as an adult I've like really had second thoughts. Like I've really like I really appreciate him a lot more. Like he did he like Obi-Wan, but in a different way. He did hard things, like really hard things that no one else would do. And like the position that he was in when he was the one like actually confronting Palpatine, like Mace Windu was doing dirty work that a lot of the other Jedi didn't want to do. And anyway, all I'm saying is like it's interesting how these characters, like it might not be popular to maybe talk about Mace Windu in one decade, but maybe later it will kind of realize that people like him were, you know, we were maybe painting them with too broad of a brush. But anyway, also the novelization just made me it made me also deepen my interest in Mace Windu. But anyway, so you can find me at Star Wars Music Minute. I have a podcast, and the podcast is on YouTube. Darth Chaco has been on it twice, including very recently, talking about 5-minute chunks of Star Wars. So we were talking about The Last Jedi last year, and then recently we talked about 5 minutes in Solo, a Star Wars story. And so we focus on the music and sound, and it's a lot of fun to really take a detailed look and detailed listen at small sections of the Star Wars films and just pay really close attention to how the sound is influencing like the overall thing. So yeah, that's where you can find me, just on all social media platforms. Yeah, I'm not always like super active on social media, depending on how anxious I am. But yeah, I'm on there. Yeah. And I talk about music and Star Wars.
Plus, you just moved into the new place, so
I just
congratulations.
moved, so everything. So my brain has been like on high stress. It's nice to talk about Revenge of the Sith tonight.
I'm happy. I was originally gonna do this one last week, and I was like, no. I need
he asked me last week, and I was like, I'm gonna have to say no if it's then, because I'm moving.
Last but certainly not least, we have Luke from Pod One's podcast. Final thoughts and where we can find you.
Yeah,
I know I ruined one of those. I'm sorry.
No, I will not ruin this, because you know what? Like this show is going to be amazing, and it's gonna blow everybody away. Final thoughts: Revenge of the Sith. It's a classic. It's one of my favorite movies. You can find me at the Pod Ones Podcast on TikTok, Pod Ones Pod on Instagram, and Pod Ones Podcast on Twitter. We are finishing up season 3 tomorrow of the Clone Wars, so it's the Ahsoka captured arc. So if you guys want to check us out, we will be going to Celebration. We're still trying to hash out on whether or not we're going to do a watch along for the first episode of Kenobi or not, or if we're just going to do reactions, whatever. But you guys can find us on YouTube at the Pod Ones Podcast. So thanks, Jocko, for having us, or having me on, not us. I get so confused sometimes.
I'll be at Celebration too, just on day 1 though. So
yes,
awesome, can't wait.
Love it.
and also you'll be invited to anything else we do around town or whatnot. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you so much for joining us, Luke. I will have your co-host on Char for something else. Haven't decided what. Need to talk to him.
Empire. Empire.
Empire. That's a ways away, but if everyone's away for Empire, like I am waiting for the for the Umbara arc.
I'm waiting for the droid arc.
Oh, yes, Umbara. It's closely coming up. It's gonna be awesome.
Yes.
Sometimes I watch the Umbara arc just to feel something, even if it's pain.
Droid arc. It's all about the droid arc. And that huge voice.
I have to rewatch the droid arc. I do remember what it is, but we've talked about it so much. I'm just gonna have to go watch it now.
Surreal droid purgatory is a little much for me, but I will watch the Pod Ones podcast when they get there, especially if they get Xanthe on there.
Yes.
So yes. I'm just saying.
Let me know. I'm down.
I'm just a simp for Rex. I'm a simple woman. I just like Rex.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Anyone who's still in the chat, I really appreciate y'all. Also, please drop a like. I don't see how many likes are on it right now, but anyone, all the people that are still here, I just want to do shouts out to KG, who joined late, as well as my buddy Isaac. That's okay. You can always rewind a little bit. Have
and you
Monty,
can watch on 1.5, 1.2 speed.
Auntie Obi-Wan Kenobi, Star Wars Lawyer, thank you, Cal Forer, St. Pat, Escape Reality Films, Big Sir, Rhett Griffin, Element 7, JJ Cat Lady. There's
nice.
Yeah, there's so many awesome people just in the chat. Miss Aggie, always Miss Aggie is just the best. I follow her everywhere. And yeah, thank you guys so much. On to the next one, and may the force